no more racism.
Yeah,
a little bit of racism.
We're gonna get there eventually. I mean, I don't know.
not until Richard comes on.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah, Richard.
Something in our topic list has to be racist, right?
Probably. It's a very light show.
Yeah.
Just
If
have to
there's any
Josh
year-end stuff we would like to discuss, this will be the last podcast of the year. Anybody has any thoughts? Any retrospectives?
Let's see how long it takes to get through this topic list, because that's probably a whole show.
Yeah.
I think most of this will take like 5 minutes, probably. Because it's except the reviews, I think that'll take a while.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if they all were to take 5 minutes, we have 10 things on the list. That's our episode.
Yeah, and also I'm gonna lay out the law right here. While Cody is talking about his Watch 7, Ryan and David are not allowed to speak. I will mute both of you.
Sorry, you're breaking up.
I've had it with this negative Wear OS atmosphere in this workplace. I'm calling
Hashtag
HR.
no haterade.
I'm calling HR.
I bathe in the Wear OS haterade.
I tried doing that. It's just Artem. He picks up and laughs and then hangs up. Tizen boys for life. Get out of here. We don't tolerate your kind.
Hey, no hate for the Tizen. However, I believe they insist you call it Tizen.
I don't care.
Also, we are absolutely 100% allowed to hate on Pebble.
Well, Pebble's actually dead.
Yeah, it's not here to defend itself.
Toughed it out a little bit. I think they would have had a shot at not being dead right now.
I don't buy that. Honestly, I think they were given so much more life than they deserved.
Wasn't most of their valuation, most of their purchase, that was just paying off debts, right? From what I understand.
They didn't make a lot of money on that.
Yeah.
That was basically Fitbit acquiring the technology for cheap. No, I think Pebble was not a full featured watch thing, but if they had been able to do more fitness oriented stuff, I think they might have been an okay alternative to Wear, because at least those watches lasted a hell of a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but man, they were all but one of them was horrifically ugly.
I think they were all pretty ugly.
Well, I'm allowing the steel that that little bit of a saving grace, because it wasn't horrifically ugly. It was just pretty bad.
Have we started? We should probably start.
Yeah, we should. It is. Yeah, it's time to actually be doing a show.
This is pre-show.
Hey, everybody. It's now time for the Android Please podcast, posted 5 minutes ago when it wasn't. I'm David Ruddick.
I'm Ryan Whitwam.
I'm Cody Toombs.
And I'm Corbin Davenport.
We've got a great show lined up for you tonight.
That's a lie.
We've got a passable show lined up for you tonight. I don't want to get anybody's expectations.
Some things
too
did
high.
happen. It's like the slowest week of the year, but
it's more than I expected to happen. I was told that the news should be slowing down so I can finish reviews, and that has not happened yet.
And then it sped right back up. The damn news. Starting with some very interesting OnePlus a leak thing that happened. It's like the most suspicious, lazy leak that is probably completely sanctioned by OnePlus I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Carl Pei was just sitting in a meeting and was just like, all right, DM to this kid.
Yeah, they've got the founder sitting right there in frame, just in case you were wondering, this is actually at OnePlus.
And he's staring gazingly into the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the framing and everything is a little too perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way you could hold the phone up and take this picture in a meeting without anybody noticing.
The photo is literally the entire context of the meeting.
Yeah.
his face visible. He's holding the phone. There's another color of the phone in front of him on the desk, and the slide talking about the phone. It's, like you would at least think, oh, they'd crop out Pete Lau because, like this is clearly OnePlus almost certainly just gave this to this kid in India, which makes sense because India's their #1 hype market. Want people to be excited about this next phone. So, especially since it's going to be stupid expensive and they're probably not going to sell many.
Yeah, it looks pretty weird too. Like from the admittedly poor quality photo, it's got a gigantic weird light camera sensor on the back.
Yeah, it's like PureView rebooted.
Yeah. It's nice Lumia 1030 vibe they've got going on right there.
Yeah, it's quite the hump.
Yeah, but we assume this is going to be their 5G phone, so so I guess is that going to be something other than the OnePlus 7? Is it going to be a OnePlus 7 variant, or?
I don't know. I really don't know. If the OnePlus 7 looks like that, that is real ugly. It's not a good look. We don't see anything about notch. Like, so the other thing you notice, you don't see the screen anywhere. There's where there would be a notch is obscured. You just get the back of the phone, a wallpaper, and that's really it. You just get the back of the phone.
Yeah, you can sort of see like towards the bottom of the front, there's like a wallpaper image that like, it comes up close to the edge. So, I guess it looks pretty similar, like proportion wise to the 6T, at least at the bottom. But who knows? That's just that's just a render for a presentation. That might not be indicative of the final device.
So it's either a 5G phone or OnePlus's canceled Tango phone.
Oh.
It does look like a Tango phone, doesn't it? Like,
well, it would need more holes, I think.
I guess it would. Yeah, it's this is probably the 5G phone, and I would guess that if OnePlus does a 5G phone, that it will be something different from the 7. That it will be a distinct device. Maybe even their first engineered in-house phone, perhaps. Who knows? But we'll see what happens. It's like this is a really, really painfully obvious tease. Like, I really don't think somebody straight up just got a hold of this photo that wasn't supposed to have it. Also, it's gotta be Carl Pace sitting right next to Pete Lau in this meeting.
Yeah, and it'd be incredibly easy to figure out who was sitting in that chair and then immediately fire them.
Yeah, Pete Lau's not gonna be like, oh, damn, I forgot who was sitting next to me in that meeting. Ugh, now I'll never be able to figure out who took the picture. I guess even though there's a webcam off to the left side where that TV is. Yeah, definitely.
The video footage was wiped.
Yeah,
it's a perfect crime.
So it's a leak that tells us. I think it's a deceptively big leak. It doesn't actually tell us much of anything. It's just a picture of back of a phone that OnePlus allegedly could be making.
I wonder if this is just in the early design stages and they're watching the feedback to this to see if they'll move forward with it or kind of go back to the iPhone-esque camera setup that they've been doing for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of...
sorry. It wasn't going to be important.
Okay. Speaking of things that kind of sound big and interesting on the surface, but are actually totally inconsequential, HTC is planning a smartphone sales reboot. What HTC calls just another year of HTC making phones. Oh, we're rebooting. Yeah. HTC's been rebooting for 5 years.
It was real weird. So they said that they're going to focus on flagship and mid-range phones, which sounds a lot like what they've been doing. They said that the U12 Plus sold better than expected, but maybe they didn't expect it to sell any. I don't know. But they're going to make more stuff like that. And then they're going to make more stuff like the Desire 12S, which they just announced recently. Which, I mean, okay. And they sold out of the Exodus 1 because they made probably 10 of them.
Yeah, the thing is, it sounds exactly like what, if you asked them 6 months ago what their plan was, it would probably be this. It doesn't feel like they really said anything new.
Yep, I don't know. I think HTC's time is running out here.
Yeah, I mean the smartphone division is definitely operating on fumes at this point. It has to be. They're losing money every quarter, and brand recognition is getting lower. So I don't see a big way for HTC to escape here.
It is funny that their plan is to keep going with the U12 line, which is exactly what LG's plan has been for the past year. They'll just keep re-releasing the V30 and V40 for eternity, I guess. Keep adding more RAM each time because flash memory is getting cheaper, so you can do that.
Yeah, I just there's no meat in this story, so there's not much to talk about. But what we can talk about is Corbin talking about Twitch.
Yes. So if you're not watching live, you might not know that we stream the podcast every Thursday night on Twitch. Oh my God, I can't talk. Twitch.tv/Android, please. Thank you. If you enjoy the show for some reason and you want to support us for some reason, we'd love it if you consider subscribing to us on Twitch. If you're an Amazon Prime member, you can connect your Twitch account to your Amazon account to get one free sub each month. And then you can give that to us, which is like giving us money without actually you paying anything. So both of us win here. So you should do it. And we have instructions for it below the video feed on our channel page. Or if you're listening to the audio version, it's in the episode description. Also keep in mind that these, if you're subscribing through Amazon Prime, then those subs have to be renewed manually each month. So if you're not sure if you're still subscribed, just go to twitch.tv/Android, please. And that's it. I'm done chilling.
Okay, and
Spearman
792
792.
subscribe. Yeah, that's good. Did you see the notch?
Yes,
I
a
hope
notch
so.
appears when you subscribe.
Yes, a notch appears on the feed when you subscribe as our way of saying thank you. I don't know why that's how we say thank you, but why not?
Yeah, because
The kids
everybody loves the Pixel 3 XL's notch.
They do. They really do. Speaking of things that it's really uncertain if anybody loves at all, Lenovo made one of these new notchless phones, and it's notchless in the sense that like the camera module slides up to take a selfie. I think these are a bad idea.
Yeah, adding mechanical pieces to phones is it's another thing to break.
It is, and I just don't think it looks elegant at all. Like it's too throwback. I think that is the allure for engineers. They can be like, we haven't had to make a phone that actually like moves in a decade. How exciting!
Yeah, they miss designing keyboard phones.
Yeah, I look at it and it's like you have to make the phone thicker to do this for one. So this phone is 9.3 millimeters. That's like 2013 thickness for a phone. It's still on the chunky side. It's not like it's bad, but it's a chunkier phone. And this phone, this is a Lenovo V5 Pro GT. It's only gonna be launching in China because Lenovo doesn't sell stuff here. Who knows if they'll do like a Motorola rebrand of it though.
So just to look at it, what bothers me about this. Oh, did I talk over you? You cut out or something?
Hangouts is cutting out really bad.
Yeah, Hangouts is doing some weird stuff right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, just to look at this, one of the things that stands out to me is you've got the whole back or front, whichever part you want to say, sliding. The whole thing's moving. And it's all just so you can allow this piece that's, I don't know, maybe as big as your pinky finger to slide up. What I kind of want to see them do, if they're going to do this at all, is have it slide both directions and put a keyboard at the bottom. I know that's stupid. It would be terrible, but at least you would have a good reason to have all of this moving part.
I think people want that even less than.
Meanwhile, at BlackBerry,
exactly.
The Priv 2 is back, baby. They're gonna sell tens of them.
Yeah, we know how that worked out. I think the slider thing is a China fad where these Chinese companies have gotten bored and are trying something new for the sake of trying something new. And once somebody starts doing it and they see all the media attention it gets, like, we got to do it too.
Yeah, I mean, these are
things people said.
These things get attention because they're just kind of crazy. And it's like, hey, look at this weird thing that they're going to sell in China. That's weird, right?
pretty much. It's like, hey, look at this car. It's got 5 wheels. And everybody's like, why the hell does it have 5 wheels? I'm like, well, you're talking about it, aren't you? This is basically the logic.
Yeah, I think that people need to just sort of come to terms with the fact that if you want a phone that's basically all screen, you're going to have to put up with a notch for a while. And phone companies should be focusing on making that as unobtrusive as possible.
Or a punch hole, Ryan.
Huh?
You could have a punch hole instead of a notch,
You know what? Like if you can fit it into a status bar type space, then fine, do it. But don't mess up my UI with your notch, please.
Speaking of which, the punch hole on the new Samsung budget phones looks absolutely terrible. There's there's a massive gap between the screen and the actual camera hole. It looks terrible.
You know what's crazy is I think people will prefer it to the notch.
Yeesh.
I kind of expect so. Really quick, I have to say, even with this Lenovo design, it's better than what I think it was Essential was showing off, that idea that they wanted to have like the little pop-up that comes out of the top of the phone. That was going to be way worse than this.
Well, that's like the Vivo phone from
Oh yeah, that's right. Someone did do that terrible thing.
What was it? We saw the prototype, and then they launched a version of it a few months later. I forget what they called it when it came out, but that was a thing. It's just
I think
they called it a loss leader.
I think the worst of all of the ideas was the phones with the Oppo did them with the cameras you flipped over. So you had one camera and you would physically flip it over, and on the second version it was motorized.
That first Cyanogen OS phone was like that, I think.
Yeah, the
Oppo
one
on the top that was rotated.
Yeah.
Those were dark days.
It did let you take photos at interesting angles because you could like partially twist it. It had some novelty, but it was pretty dumb still. Like you flip over your camera to take a selfie, and it looked really bad. It was very awkward. The whole thing was very strange.
Yeah, it was not so good.
Those were dark days.
They really were. Speaking of dark days, Google has apparently ceased work on Dragonfly. It's planned to bring Google to China via a censored version of Google Search, after receiving probably the biggest pounding publicly in the media that Google's received in years. This is pretty bad for them.
Yeah. And, so like they never like confirmed that this was actually a thing, did they? This was based on leaks of like prototypes that they were working on.
Well, it was initially leaks, and then when Sundar Pichai was in front of the U.S. Senate a couple weeks ago, he did discuss it there because they brought it up.
Yeah. So the deal was that they were going to tie searches to phone numbers, and that was going to be the way that they like index stuff for the Chinese government. Because if you're going to do anything in China, you have to provide the data to the Chinese government. That's just the way it is. And people were not okay with that. Google pulled out of China like 10 years ago now because they didn't want to comply with Chinese censorship laws.
Yeah, and so the whole thing with this project, I mean, the obvious controversy pulled out of China was because they didn't agree with censorship, and the whole purpose of Dragonfly was to develop a censored version of search.
Yeah,
we can see why maybe this looks a little bit hypocritical.
Yeah, I mean, in the intervening years, though, Android took off and became the most popular computing platform in the world, and none of the Android phones in China are connected to Google.
Yeah, and Google's looking at the potential money it's losing out on, and like just a little bit of drool just comes out of the corner.
It's like if we could just get the Play Store on those phones. Oh, geez, get some search data, some ads.
I mean, what's funny is that Google would still get its butt kicked by the domestic Chinese companies.
Oh yeah, they're so far behind. But like, I mean, even if they could just get a fraction of Chinese Android users on like Google certified devices, that would be huge for them. And I feel like Google's current management feels like that this whole situation is very like unfair because all of their competitors are in China doing their thing and sharing data with the government, and Google tries to like get a piece of that, and everybody's like, hang on, Google.
But Dad, Bing gets to go to China.
Yeah, but no one uses it there either.
Oh, poor Bing. Yeah. Can't even survive with censorship.
I feel like I'm going to be making fun of everything tonight. No,
It's just one of those days.
No, that's cool. I'm good with that. No, this is one of those things. I mean, yeah, Google has a long way to catch up, but at the same time, I hate to put it so flippantly, but it's Google. They're competing against some fairly terrible services that obviously just can't draw in the users the same way. Their main goal here is to bring search and not necessarily take over the phones. If they're bringing in search, you got to figure a lot of Chinese audience is probably going to adopt that fairly quickly.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, Baidu and what's the other one?
Alibaba. Do they have search?
I don't know if Alibaba does search. This shows how much we know about
China. Business there, but I don't think
China is just like a completely different internet world, like literally, because they wall themselves off from so much of the rest of the internet.
I don't think Google would actually be very strong. They have enough ability to pull in people through Android that they would make money, certainly. But
I feel like Google's only way forward is to just partner with some domestic search company and just like borrow their results and just let them handle all of the regulatory stuff and just be like, look, this is Google. Like, you have a Google app on your phone, but it's going to pull down results from the search engines you already use. And then they can like bundle some other services into China and have some control over Android in that country.
I think that's kind of how they're going in Russia, because they were forced to like, I think some Russian law, they had to take the Google search widget off of Android there.
They have to let companies bundle other search things as the default.
Right.
So that's why the Yandex phone exists, probably.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's an interesting story, but I think that it's also a highly politicized one, and honestly, one that we just really didn't end up really ever knowing too terribly much about. Now, speaking of overpromising and underdelivering, AT&T. Well, I guess AT&T didn't overpromise, but I feel like they definitely underdelivered. They launched 5G in select cities, their mobile 5G network, and you can use it with the $500 asterisk you can't actually buy yet. It's not out. You can just order one. So,
but David, this is 5G plus. It's 5G plus. If you don't say the plus, then how can you differentiate this from the other 5G networks that don't exist?
It's 5G, but plus. It's more. It's more 5G.
Yeah, more. Yes. I mean, it's I mean, I guess technically this is the first commercial 5G NR network. Like, this is the real 5G. Verizon PR was very upset about, I think, every article that was written about the AT&T thing, because we had 5G on October 1st. Of course, referring to their non-standard compliant home broadband thing, which is, not the same thing. But, AT&T has 5G, I guess, sort of technically first. But, whenever you want to buy that $500 mobile hotspot thing, good luck.
So I find this really amusing, because, are normal people actually going to buy this? And not immediately return it after they realize it's not any different, or it's actually worse than their phones, probably, because there aren't enough towers.
Yeah, so this is basically going to work outside.
Yeah, because it's the millimeter 5G, right?
Yeah, it's just millimeter wave. And I don't think there's any place. So they have it in 10-ish or 8 or 10 cities. They're adding more next year, but I don't think there's any place that has an indoor 5G network. Have they started putting those in stadiums and stuff? Yes, no.
I think the stadiums are probably a pretty good use case. Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know if any of that exists yet. So the places you could actually use this on 5G will be limited.
Yeah. So the way it works now, I'm looking at the website. I hadn't actually looked yet. You have to right now. The device will not actually be able to buy until next spring, which gives them until mid-June.
They said they're going to start letting some people have it, but they're not going to charge them the monthly fee right away. They're basically
and I'm guessing you got to sign a big fat NDA if they give it to you, without a doubt. AT&T doesn't want anybody reviewing it. I asked AT&T, and normally their PR person is eerily responsive. Hey, is there any way we could test this? And nothing. So I think that they're this is very much AT&T promised they were going to do this, and this is we're saying, look, we did it. We flipped the switch. And then they'll send them to select businesses and consumers, and those people won't be able to talk about it, almost certainly. And I'm guessing we probably won't actually hear about somebody using this device in the media probably until after CES. And even then, I bet it will be a highly controlled situation, because AT&T's almost certainly got a lot of kinks to work out. And
or at CES, they'll set up a little tiny 5G network like Qualcomm did at Hawaii. So everyone can test 5G in the very small area that is AT&T's CES booth.
Yeah, you can stand directly under the tower.
yeah.
Yes.
Didn't T-Mobile do that in Vegas one year? I swear that.
I know Sprint did it when they announced WiMAX. They had like a tiny WiMAX tower like inside the venue where people were testing the Evo 4G. Like, okay, that's cool and all, I guess.
Yeah. So this AT&T hotspot, Ron Amadio wrote an article about it over in Ars Technica, and he described it as like insane overkill, which it is. It has a Snapdragon 855 in it.
What?
Yeah, no, totally nuts. It doesn't make any sense.
That's a prototype.
That's insane. Why would they do that?
This is my theory. This is basically a smartphone in a big plastic cladding body. This is just
well, it is if it has an 855.
Is it just like the reference platform?
I think so. I think what it is they built a custom. They've built an antenna design based on Qualcomm's like 855 smartphone reference platform or whatever, and it's just a huge like giant like. That's why it's probably so big, is so they have all those antenna surfaces, so you can't block it very easily. Yeah. Because your hand will block 5G millimeter wave.
Yeah, that's why like every 5G prototype has like 3 or 4 antennas at least.
Yeah, we're up to 3 antennas on normal 5G smartphones at this point, to make sure that you're not blocking any given one of them.
So at what point do we go back to phones having the pull out antenna? Because I feel like we're coming back to that.
You know that the Motorola 5G mod does have like a pretty big bump on the top of it.
It's got a stub. It has the 5G stub. So the Samsung had a prototype 5G phone at Qualcomm's event in Hawaii, and everybody's like, "Oh wow, the notch on that is so weird. Why is it up in the corner like that? And why is the shape weird?" I'm like, am I the only one who noticed that's supposed to be like an antenna stub? They're calling out the antenna stub design language. Like, this is supposed to be like an old phone, and here's a little hump on the side and for the antenna. So I think that we may see some pretty interesting designs for 5G phones physically, especially to start, because the batteries are going to have to be bigger. They're going to have to be thicker to accommodate the antenna modules. And the engineering is going to be, I think, a little more haphazard, because basically what's going to happen, you have to build your whole smartphone, and then you have to build the 5G aspect around it, because 5G is not fully integrated like 4G is. 4G, the antenna designs and everything, those are really easy to fit into the existing smartphone frame designs. 5G, got to throw it all out the window and start over.
And you still need the separate modem on top of that.
Yeah, it's not in the SoC package still. It's just like interlinked to the 855 if you want to do that.
Yeah, you have to. It's actually another set of parts that you have to pay extra for, because you don't just need the modem, you need the antenna modules. So we're going back old. It was like we're going back in time a little bit. You have actual antenna modules that help, basically attenuate for the frequency stuff, because you have beam forming and all this crazy stuff that 5G millimeter wave does, and so you need this dedicated advanced radio hardware for the antenna array to work properly. So in a way, it's actually like kind of going back in time, because we're going back to a place where we need specialized antenna hardware to acquire the signal. It's not something that can all be done on the chip or through software. So I'm going to be really curious to see how some of the first 5G phones look. I don't think they're going to be all that elegant.
Okay, so going back to the putting the 855 in this, maybe they just did it because they figured we're only going to sell like a couple hundred of these. It's not going to be, well, maybe a few thousand, whatever. It's not going to be worth developing a separate like actual piece of hardware just for this. So why not just stick something in there? It'll cost less, even if it costs more component wise.
I'm guessing the other issue is, and I just thought about this, is that the 855 is probably the only SoC Qualcomm offers that's compatible with the 5G modem right now.
Well,
So
they're going to have
Well, yeah,
that.
for
They're
now.
going to have the mod for the Z3 that'll connect to that same X50 5G modem.
yeah, I wonder if you open up that mod, if there's a full 855 inside of it.
That would be pretty wild.
I would not be surprised. Well, I mean, from what I understand, the way it operates, it's completely separate of the phone. It's just like basically putting the data through the.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
so like they didn't have like any of this working when they announced the Z3. Like they had mock-ups of the mod, and they had like a prototype that was like in a laboratory with like
that
a
mod's
little,
going to be like a
little
bajillion
5G.
dollars.
Yeah, like they had a little tiny
So-
5G antenna next to the mod to prove that it worked. But like, okay, guys, that's not
So
encouraging.
if the mod is a completely separate device with a faster or a newer SoC, we're going back in time again to like the Sega 32X where you plug it in and you get a better console? And it's just its own thing?
I'm sure that it would be a complete waste, and that the 855 will only be to like run the modem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of things that use mobile networks and that you probably shouldn't buy, Ryan had a chance to check out the Samsung Chromebook Plus LTE, which is really the only LTE Chromebook to speak of out there on the market right now.
Oh yeah, a Sprint PR person sent me a very aggressive Twitter DM to remind me that they did have a CTL business and education oriented LTE Chromebook that you can buy, but you can't actually. You have to call them and like ask to like have a representative sell you one.
Sprint actually reached out to tell you that?
Yeah, it was
wow.
Weird. And I was like, okay, guys, that's not really the same thing. But if you want to go to Samsung's website right now, you can buy this LTE-enabled Chromebook. I don't think that you should, because it is $600, and it's a Celeron with 4 gigs of RAM, and it's not super fast. The display is very nice, and it comes with a stylus that docks inside. That's pretty handy if you're into the stylus thing. The keyboard is sort of mediocre. The trackpad's sort of mediocre. Like it feels like a Chromebook that should cost like $200 less. But you're basically paying more because, like, hey, LTE, it's the only reasonable way that you can get LTE in a Chromebook right now, and it's only Verizon, which is sort of lame. But
really,
I don't know.
Only works on Verizon?
Yeah, yep.
That's bizarre.
It is pretty weird. But yeah, so I mean, it's just not a good buy. I mean, it's competent, but not for the price.
Yeah, it's a lot of money for that.
The Verizon exclusivity, I think, is the worst part, because there could definitely be a market for this for people that subscribe to Google Fi, and they can just pop their data SIM in.
Yeah, and that's honestly when I was reviewing the Pixel Slate, I was asking, like, guys, like, why didn't you make an LTE version? You have Google Fi, an LTE connected tablet, is a lot more convenient in some respects. I'm like, well, we didn't want to make it too thick. And I'm like, seriously? That's the lamest thing. I was like, no, that's not an answer, man. Like, Microsoft's making LTE surfaces and has been for years. Apple makes LTE iPads. You guys just didn't think you'd sell any, which fair point.
But, you just answered the question for them.
Yeah.
But I was just kind of like, well, that doesn't seem like a good excuse.
This, in a weird way, that Verizon exclusivity reminds me of I think it was the original Chromebook Pixel that came with LTE, because that only worked with Verizon too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was like bundled with the computer too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
It was supposed to work like forever, but it only worked for like 2 years or something.
Hey, the CR48, the first Chromebook ever, had Verizon CDMA bundled with it. It worked for a year. That was so cool. That was like in the future.
When Google announced Chrome OS, they were like they presented mobile data connectivity as part of the deal, like that Chrome would just have that.
Because web apps just didn't work at all offline.
Yeah,
I mean, most of them still don't, but none of them did at that point. So yeah, that was fun.
Speak XJ7 says, isn't HP coming out with an LTE version of the X2? I've not heard that.
I don't know.
I haven't heard about that. That may be a thing. I didn't think they were, but I might have missed that. The X2 is actually pretty. From what I've heard, the X2 is a better buy versus the Pixel 8. I've not used the X2.
I think Ryan has one. I think he posted a quick review of it, or did he? Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember. I think he had it for a roundup of some sort.
So Speak XJ might be referring to the NVX2 LTE, which is a Qualcomm laptop, and that's not running Chrome OS. I don't think I've heard about the. So there's a rumor on About Chromebooks that there's a. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I've not heard anything about an LTE version of the HP Chromebook. I feel like I would have heard about that. So I don't think that's a thing at this point.
Yeah. Well, maybe, I don't know. It feels like we just kind of did the Twitch shilling. I don't know if we need to do it again.
I don't think we need to do it again. Subscribe to us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Android, please.
But now is the time for David and I to be quiet while Corbin and Cody talk about how much they love Wear OS.
Wear OS Blues
so much.
Well, okay, so I guess you're skipping the intro. Short version. I did a review for the LG Watch W7. This is infamously the watch with hands. The first Wear OS watch with hands. I didn't really prepare much in the way of thoughts for what to say about this. Short version is, I actually kind of like it. The hands look really good. They bring back that, like, the feel of wearing a watch where you get to actually see what time it is when you just turn your wrist. You don't have to wait for the display to come on. It's the battery life is actually pretty good. The watch is a little bit thicker than like some favorites like the Huawei watch, but it looks thinner because they actually put a little bit of watch design into this, which most smartwatches really just look like watches, or sorry, like a screen strapped to your wrist. So, there's I hate to put it this way, but as much as it's hard to recommend this thing, it's also probably one of the best smartwatches I've seen. So, I don't know. Questions, thoughts?
And it's also $220 now, which is
the original price was $450, which contributed to the "Are you giving me a break?" LG thing that we had going on before.
Because LG can't sell any of them.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, there's no question. Like, as much as I like this thing, it's hard to recommend just because it does have like those weak points. If you're really into his smartwatch, this is probably not for you because you're not going to want the hands getting in the way of apps, and you're in general going to get ridiculed and mocked by any hardcore fans who just automatically jump to hating this thing, which, let's be honest, a lot of people did.
David, sorry. Little off there.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
I say my name.
I mean, we all openly made fun of this when it came out because it just looked absurd. Like, actually, we were trying to figure out who would review it, and it was just between me and Cody, like which one of us like cared the least to. We didn't really care.
Yeah, this was very much a sort of a dare you to take it kind of moment. And I don't know about Corbin, but I openly mocked this on Twitter. Like, I thought it was the worst idea possible. And
well, no, I made fun of it in a post that because actually the first time we became aware that it was out was when it went on sale. So my assumption was that LG didn't actually tell anyone. It came out before it went on sale. And then an LG person very kindly emailed me and said, no, we announced it was coming out, and they linked to a press release where it was about like halfway down the page where they first mentioned it. So
yeah, and it was they were so just like matter of fact, like no, we announced this, we just didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, that's what you do with a product you're really proud of and think it's going to be really successful.
Yeah. For as much as they need to continue engineering on this and making it better, I do hope that they don't give up on it. I would like to see a version 2 of this, mostly just so that they can fix some of the obvious oversights and logical fallacies that they made. but it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, this is actually a good step in a direction that someone should be going. So yeah, anyway.
Well, I could rant about Wear OS and why Google is utterly shooting itself in the foot for ages, but I don't think everybody really wants to hear that. So let's move on to something else that's much easier to make fun of, which is the Asus ROG phone, which Steven reviewed. Steven saw on the show tonight, but his thoughts were mixed. I mean, the 90 hertz display on it, which is getting to be a thing on these gaming phones, these high refresh displays are obviously great. I don't get me wrong, every time I see a high refresh display on a phone, oh, it's so nice. I really do think it's great. And this is an OLED panel. This is, I think, is the first phone with an OLED panel that goes above 60 hertz.
Yeah,
I think Samsung panels
so.
are capable of it, but Samsung hasn't enabled it on any of its own phones yet. So obviously it's got great performance. Steven puts software as a pro. I don't agree with Steven. Send you why it blows. And you know, the whole thing honestly is just bizarre to me. Like, the phone has 2 USB-C ports, which, okay, I'm sure somebody out there wants that. To me, this is like engineering overkill.
It comes with the cooling bracket, but the cooling bracket, the underside of it is plastic. So like the plastic sits on the back of the phone, and there's a fan right above the plastic. Like the heat isn't coming off of the phone through the plastic. That's not how it works.
Ryan, you feel that it's coming off of the plastic.
Steven said that the phone actually gets hotter with that on.
He did.
It's spreading the heat.
Yeah, it's just that's just so dumb. I will grant though, like when I used the ROG phone, I was actually kind of enamored with the ultrasonic shoulder buttons. Like, I thought that was kind of like a fun way to like do mobile gaming, because it's screen mapping, so you can use it with like any game.
Yeah. So one of the things that actually somebody brought up with the top comments was comparisons to the Razer phone too. And I think that's a good comparison, because I actually think if that's the benchmark we're going for here, the ROG phone seems a lot better.
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely, you know, I make fun of Asus, their crappy software and like their gamer bro design, but Asus spends a lot of time thinking about like, oh, how do we make it better for the gamers, you know? And I think that it shows in the product. Like the extra USB-C port, that way you can grip your phone while it charges. Like, you know, it's a big engineering cost investment, but like, if that's what you care about, this phone brings
the Razer phone is a gaming phone just because Razer insists that it is.
Yeah. Whereas the ROG phone is basically Johnny Shee's fever dream brought to life.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I would never buy one. I would never recommend that somebody buy one, even though apparently our review says that you should buy one if you want it. But I think that it's hard to, like, as much as I want to be cynical about the phone, and I do feel cynical things about it, and I do think that it's worth making fun of, I think at the same time that Asus did something that they took the gaming phone concept to a level nobody has yet.
Yeah.
Asus went the extra mile.
I mean, I think like calling things gaming phones in general is just kind of silly, but this is one that actually, you know, okay, they can call it a gaming phone. I won't mock them for that.
Yeah, it has like the, you know, the accessories and everything. It's got the dock, you know, the dock with all the ports and everything, which is pretty cool. I believe that dock supports display out, right? So you can, that's kind of cool. So I think Asus, you know, was thoughtful with this. I think they will sell none of them.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think I don't know who this is for. That's the thing. I don't think any consumer actually exists in any real world that wants this product. I do think that it exists for a very fake consumer that Asus is convinced that, you know, we should be telling to buy it. And I do think the design is garish and terrible, and if you like it, you probably like to put stickers on your car. But you know, it gotta say, nothing else like it out there.
Yeah, I will say it looks less bad in person. Like, the photos make it look.
Yeah, no, I remember holding it. It's nice. It feels well built. It's very solid and heavy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is a brick. I mean, it's like $900, so I think that's the biggest strike against it. Like, why would you spend that much?
Oh yeah, no way. This is definitely this is something that Asus can hand to like their, you know, like pro gaming sponsors, and be like, he uses an Asus ROG phone, the ultimate gaming device.
Funny, I was
So-
just thinking this is total like YouTuber territory.
It is. It really is.
I can absolutely see MKBHD doing a video just like playing this.
Yeah. And what's curious about to me, so Sean Plays Games asked in the chat, isn't ASUS rebooting their phone line? Yeah, they just can the executive who leads phones, but like ASUS, I guess actually that guy's been there for a while. That's Johnny Shen, not Shi. Johnny Shi's the CEO of ASUS and chairman, but ASUS did just can the person who leads the phone division. I don't know that their regular phone division did this phone though, because ROG is like a special elite unit.
Yeah, that's like a
ASUS.
different, like a company inside Asus.
Yeah, but before we get bogged down in the RG phone here, let's switch platforms yet again. Chrome. Corbin had a chance to check out
a good Chromebook, I guess.
Yeah, the Dell
Yes.
Chromebook 14, which just went on sale for like a really good price as we published this review, right?
Yes, it originally cost, I believe, $600, and it went on sale for $450, I think. Let me see. Yeah, okay, so yeah, it was $450 from Best Buy. It might still be that price. But yeah, so there are most of the large Chromebooks on the market right now are terrible. They have like netbook processors in them with not enough RAM. A lot of them are garbage. There are, I think, like two Chromebooks larger than 13 inches that have good hardware in them. I haven't tried any of those. The only one I've tried is the Dell Chromebook 14, which I have here. And it is a 14-inch Chromebook with a Core i3 processor, 4 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage. And it's pretty nice. It's really fast. Actually, again, it's a 2-in-1, so you can...
That seems really
hold it.
weird. 128 gigs of storage and only 4 gigs of RAM? That's like really
Yeah,
backward for a Chromebook.
It is a little weird, and some people did complain about it, but I used an Asus C302 as my main laptop for a year, and it only had 4 gigs, and I was fine. So even with Android apps, Chrome OS is still pretty good on RAM usage compared to Windows. But 128 gigs does give you a lot of storage for Android apps, which is nice. And the Dell Chromebook also has a stylus built into it, just like the Chromebook Ryan reviewed. So that's nice. Now, the only thing that sucks about this Chromebook is that it is very heavy. This thing is 4 pounds.
Whoa!
So it's very hefty. You could probably knock someone out with it if you hit them in the head.
So is the i3 in it? Is it one that requires a fan? Or is it...
There is a fan on this, but I only ever heard it come on once. So
it's
doesn't.
a U series or a Y series?
It's a U. It's a 15 watt.
Okay.
It's like a real i3, not a rebranded Celeron or something. So Diablo said this one seems pretty neat, good for kids. Kinda. I'm not sure I would give it.
It's a little big for kids.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I would give a kid a $400, $500 Chromebook. But it's very well built. I've always really liked Dell's laptops. This feels really solid. Probably most of that because it weighs a lot, but it feels very well built. Unlike some of the other Chromebooks I've used, especially on the low end. But yeah, if you want a big Chromebook, then this is a good option, I think. And again, the Core i3 and this is Chrome OS flies on it. I had no performance issues at all. And again, like the 4 gigs of RAM, like there probably should have been 8 gigs of RAM for the price, but whatever. Chrome OS is pretty optimized.
I mean, you're still getting a lot more than the $600 Samsung Chromebook because at least you get an i3.
It's true. You're getting a lot more than the $600 Pixel Slate too. So yeah. It seems like a good Chromebook.
It is. I definitely like using it.
Yeah. So finally, to wrap up this week, I have a question from Nathan. He emailed us asking, last week on the podcast, these guys discussed battery charging rates, the OnePlus 6T McLaren, Oppo VOOC charging. But I'd like to know what effect these fast charging rates have on battery life. I'm under the impression that regularly charging a battery at these really fast rates will shorten the life of the battery. Is this wrong, or do you guys just willingly trade battery health for the convenience of fast charging? I avoid fast charging my Pixel XL unless I really need it, but maybe that is not necessary. Thanks. So this is an interesting question. I believe both Oppo and OnePlus's fast charging, they put a bunch of stuff in the cable. You have to use the included cable, and the cable soaks up a bunch of the heat as a result. So the battery doesn't get as hot. And I've noticed that when I charge the R17 Pro, the phone actually barely gets warm at all. It's actually kind of weird. So as long as you're able to adequately cool the battery, fast charging it, as I understand, is not especially bad for it or anything. The problem you run into with fast charging is heat, and that becomes more of a factor usually when you're using the phone while it's charging. Phones become very hot when they're in use while charging, and that will reduce your basically the number of cycles you're going to get.
And fast charging, it slows down as the phone gets closer to full, because that is better for the battery's longevity as well.
Yeah. So I guess the way to look at this is, so a smartphone's battery, I would say, is designed for realistically like a 2 to 3 year use cycle. After like 3 years, like basically the manufacturers aren't accounting for that as much anymore. And like if the battery continues to work well, great. But if it doesn't, then it would not be unusual to replace a battery after 3 years, no matter what.
If you are draining the battery every day, then however you're charging it, it's gonna be not in great shape after 24 months.
Yeah, definitely. It comes down to the number of cycles. And so let's say if charging your phone at Super VOOC rates reduced your cycle life by 10%, and normally you'd get, let's say, 500 cycles before reaching like 80% of original capacity or something. Like, okay, so it reaches that state 2 months earlier. That's not a huge difference, really speaking. It sounds like it's 60 days, but in terms of how you use the phone and your ownership experience, it's a little less. Those aren't real numbers I'm giving you here. It's just an example. But the fact is that draining the battery and recharging it again, that's the most intensive thing that happens to the battery, is being drained and then recharged, drained and then recharged. The rate at which it's recharged, or the rate at which it's drained, has a much lower effect on the battery's cycle longevity, as I understand it, at least. I don't think we have any battery chemists on the panel today. That's based on what I've read. You can go there's a website out there if you're curious called Battery University, and they talk about a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I would say just don't stress about it. If your phone fast charges, then fast charge it and just use it normally, and just don't lose sleep over this.
Yeah. And a little bit of housekeeping news. There will not be a podcast next week. It's the holidays, and people are going to be out traveling, blah, 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 etc. And honestly, none of you are going to listen to it anyways, because you're probably doing stuff too, unless you're trying to escape, the holidays, in which case, I'm sorry, we won't be there to provide you respite with our podcast, which, as I know, is soothing and makes everyone happy. Reminder that you should sign up and subscribe to the podcast, twitch.tv/AndroidPolice. If you have an Amazon Prime subscription, you can subscribe to us on Twitch for free. And your free subscription gives us money. It's crazy. You help support the show, and we really appreciate when you do it. And if you're on the live show when you subscribe, this big notch drops down on the video screen, and then we say thank you to you. If you subscribe via the audio feed, thank you too. We probably can't call you out on the show generally because we don't keep track of the individual subscriptions, but we do appreciate it. It's a big help, and it helps keep the show going. Anybody else have anything to add?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, thank you for listening, everybody, and we will catch you the first week of January.
Good night, everybody.